Hey guys, welcome to Creating Creators podcast. In our last episode, I sat down with Harrison Tarabella. And when asked who inspires you, Harrison said Cedar Creative. This week, I was able to sit down with the three people behind Cedar Creative. I sat down with Ethan Milner, Kevin Johnson, and Greyson Welch. These three guys were able to share with us sort of the idea of Cedar Creative, some of the processes that they go through to create the content that they do, sort of their focus on storytelling, and finally, who inspires them. Check out this conversation. I think you'll benefit from it greatly. I know I did. Thank y'all so much for joining me on the Creating Creators podcast today. Cedar Creative, our initials go really well together, right?
Not bad.
All C's.
Yeah, there you go. So if y'all don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and just get started in these slides, and then we'll sort of go from there. I think there will be an opportunity for hopefully for y'all to sort of flesh out a lot of information about yourselves. Before this, let me just go ahead and say it so the audience knows. Before this very moment, I've never met either, like any of y'all, right?
Yeah, until about 5 seconds ago. Yeah.
There you go. Perfect. Well, thank you again for doing this, especially with a complete random stranger that reached out to you via, I think your website is how I reached out.
We love it. Yeah, always good to meet people.
Perfect. Okay, so let's look at this first couple of slides here. So the first thing is just who is Cedar Creative, and y'all can obviously sitting together, y'all can all chime in or talk over each other or interrupt each other however much you want.
We love to interrupt each other.
That will happen. I feel like we should sit in the order of those photos.
I know. Yeah.
That means I got to sit on Grayson's shoulder too. Yeah, you don't take that.
Yeah. So Cedar Creative is our film production company based in Birmingham, Alabama. And if you were to boil it all down, we would probably all say some version of we like to tell stories. And we kind of started our company with the premise of can we figure out a way to make a sustainable business telling stories? And so when we started, that was kind of a question. And a couple years into it, we've found a way to kind of stick around and continue to tell stories. And hopefully our goal is to tell them in a way that lasts. That's kind of, we talk about Cedar Creative. We talk about making and building things that last. Like you think about cedar as a type of wood, it's something you build fence posts out of, or your mailbox might be, nailed to a piece of cedar because you can stick it in the ground and it won't rot. It'll be there in 5 years, be there in 10 years, it'll keep on kind of being something that can support different things. And for us as a company, we want to make content for people that last. Like we've been in different contexts before where a lot of times you make things that kind of live and die in one moment. They get shown at an event one time, or they get posted one time, and that's their whole life cycle. That's the whole kind of existence of the piece. But we want to kind of help people make things that have a longer life and that can be something that they can use and kind of return to and continue to kind of utilize to help tell their story or to talk about their brand or talk about their nonprofit or their company over a longer period of time. So that's kind of why we're called Cedar Creative, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make things that last.
So I'm always curious, did the name come first or did the premise for the name?
This is when we started, we were like, I'm afraid people will ask us this question.
Because the answer is we started with the name first.
Of course.
We were literally just driving around one day, Kevin and I, when we started the company a few years ago, and saying names that, felt good together. Productions, so such and such productions, or this or that creative, these different, trying on different things. And then stumbled across Cedar Creative, and we're just like, well, it just sounds good. Okay. And you kind of, at the beginning of starting a business, you're just like, let's move on. Not that much time to think about this kind of stuff. Let's just call it something, get a website up, bigger fish to fry. Let's worry about making the work and just get the name and the website and all that kind of stuff going.
I always love it about branding in general. I always hear that basically it's not the logo that matters. It's not the name that matters. It's really what that ultimately is going to represent, right? And in the case of, I mean, I think like you just described with Cedars and long lasting, more, I mean, you could have called it bananas creative, right? I mean, it really didn't matter. What matters is ultimately the products you create, the team that you are, the services that you provide. And it just so happens that it also goes really well with the idea of a cedar.
Yeah, I think that's it. You're trying to look for something that has like some imagery already to it. And Kevin and I were already obsessed with kind of woodworking home renovation projects as well. So it was like maybe that was top of mind as like something that felt close at the time as we were trying to come up with that and had some sort of branding potential.
Yeah. I love it. And I love your logo. I'll go ahead and just add this to the video real quick. Your logo, just that clean tree icon, looks so great. Not to mention your website in general looks great. I love just the aesthetics of it, the simplicity of it. Even it looks really great. Which we'll talk more about maybe some of your work in a little while.
I've been pushing for us to get the logo as tattoos. I haven't succeeded. Maybe give the company another 3-4 years. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll make sure.
Yeah.
I have not agreed to that.
I'm still working on it.
What would be awesome? That would be y'all's first tattoo, and that would be a pretty great first.
I think I would have to get another tattoo. It could not be my first tattoo. It would have to be number 2.
Yeah,
Cedar tree.
The question is, where would you get it? That and that may need to be for off the video, right?
We all agreed it was lower back.
Yep.
Yeah, it was part of
That-
that. Yeah.
That way it's like it's long lasting, right? I mean, at that point, I mean, even the idea of a lower back tattoo and the popularity of it is long lasting. So
It's the ultimate evergreen content.
It shows itself at just the right time, Jordan.
Yeah.
oh man, that's good. That's a good term, also the evergreen content. So very fitting. So, all right, let's talk about this. So I looked at your Instagram. I stalked each of you on Facebook and Instagram quite a bit. So here we've got your.
I was going to say Grayson's a lot more popular than the rest of us.
Say that one more time.
Grayson's first post ever gets 28 likes, and
Yeah, he's got a lot more friends than the rest of us.
Objectively, I think my post is just better. That's why.
I mean, it has more motion for sure.
it says a lot about all of us.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, and that's sort of what I wanted to get to with this is just obviously we got your very first posts. And I say very first, Greyson, yours says, I think as a hashtag, yes, this is like another picture of my dog, something in that reference. Is this the very first picture you put on Instagram, or is this like like another post of a dog picture?
Is this a sleeper account?
I don't know. I can't. I mean, I think I've tallied up quite a large number of that dog's name is Lucy. Lucy pictures, but I don't know.
Maybe
Okay, for it to have 28 likes, it sounds like it may have not been your first. Plus, your hashtag sounds like maybe you posted a whole bunch of pictures and then you deleted them because you were ashamed of them or something. We need to know more about your first.
Went back and cleaned up his Instagram image.
Exactly.
like you turned it more professional, but you still kept the Lucy photo.
I really don't know. Brian, you're kind of throwing me for a loop, dude. I need to go back and look and like jog my memory because that is not something I would put off the table. I may have done that. I do not remember.
Okay. All right. I feel like you were ashamed of what was on there before this picture, which begs the question, what in the world shames you if this picture doesn't?
Grayson's a bit younger than us by a few years, so he's a bit more digitally literate. And
okay.
So, you could have just been curating your image earlier than we were.
Here's my commitment, Brian. I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at it, and if I find that I did in fact delete said images, you will receive them. I won't hide my true self from your email inbox.
Okay. All right. I look forward to it. But I do see that you were probably, sort of fine tuning your brand. And I imagine this is just spot on for you then.
Yeah. incredibly long hashtags that are never going to connect anybody to it. Yes.
Also,
And we were back
colors.
then. We were all learning. Back when the everybody was using the built-in filters. I mean, we were all learning how this social media stuff works. Really.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, but I do want to know, like, what does this still fit with who the three of you are? If you go back this many years and see what you were posting on social media, I see Steve Jobs. I mean, is that still fitting today for Kevin?
Yeah. I mean, that was like the iconic biography that came out. I would say that's still, a part of me in a way. What I see when I see that picture is that book is standing on yellow shag carpet that was in the first house that I ever purchased, and subsequently pulled up every stitch of that yellow shag carpet. And the whole buying a house and pulling up the carpet thing is very much a part of my life, and happened in the last 3 years. So we're still doing that sort of thing for sure.
Nice, nice. Tell me, Ethan, about this tree. I mean, obviously, are you a nature person? Are you lines person? Are you death person? I don't really know what to read into this.
It is a bit dark.
Yeah, it strikes me that mine's by far the moodiest and mopiest of all three. And that fits, I'd say. Grayson's is all sunny and happy, and Lucy's like, and like your colors are kind of natural. Kevin's is like not that aesthetically pleasing, but it's like got
Information communicated.
I'll be okay.
And mine's just sad. So yeah, that fits. So, I don't think we've grown past that.
Do you know this tree?
January 9, 2012. That was my senior year of college. I bet you that's at my family's house in college. Just just
a tree.
Some random tree.
Campus, maybe. Yeah. God, that's so funny.
Okay. Well, I don't want to read too much into Kevin's, obvious plan to take over the world, or Ethan's bad depression, or Grayson's, furball, just in general. But I think these do say a lot about probably who you were and maybe even who you are now.
It's pretty fitting. I kind of like that, actually.
Nice. All right. So this next one, let's talk a little bit about your actual work itself. And just tell me a little bit about you tell me how you would describe Cedar Creative and the work that y'all do.
Yeah. So we started the company based on a bit of an experiment or a question, which was I had come up after college for about a decade working in a large house of worship here in Birmingham. And my sort of obsession with narrative filmmaking, like fictionalized narrative, was explored, allowed to like really kind of stretch my wings there and do that within this church. And the question was, but a lot of the video content that was happening in our market was more documentary or testimonial or corporate or this, that, and the other. And I wasn't seeing many examples of like, how can I do this outside of the church? Can I still make short films? Can I still make branded content that is, allows me to exercise those muscles of writing and truly kind of exploring that sort of cinematic filmmaking style that I have always been obsessed with. And so when Kevin and I were starting the company, it was kind of that. We were like, we love doing this. This is what we want to do. Can we maybe start a company where we do like 20% of this and, pay the bills with the other stuff that people might actually hire us to do? But we really wanted to try to, maybe we start with 20% and 80% is kind of more the corporate or testimonial or this, that, and the other, that we were not so in love with. But kind of from the beginning, it started going quite well that direction, that we were able to like talk to clients, friends, relationships, contacts about that sort of storytelling angle. And there was enough work coming out of the church that you kind of had some legs to stand on. There was stuff to back up that you could pull off that approach. It felt more accessible to us than maybe if it should have felt, because narrative typically is like, it's very expensive, it's costly, there's a reason that's not happening in smaller markets. And we kind of thought, well, we know how to do this cheaper by mobilizing and leveraging an organization's resources like we did at the church to pull these things off. without huge budgets. And so that's kind of where we started at the beginning. And to our surprise, like now what we do for the most part, most of our work is like fictionalized narrative. We work with an organization, mostly nonprofits, partly because that's the work we like to do. That's where the stories are. Nonprofits exist to solve a problem. They themselves are the solve to a problem. And that's a great basis for a story. That's a great conflict to start a story from. And so a lot of our work you'll see on our website is like nonprofit work, some kind of larger or traditional commercial work as well. But it really came about as like, can we make a living making short form films for people? And that's kind of what we get to do now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I looked through your website, and I was actually watching a few of your films today, I see that you even label them as that. You label many of your what people would probably classify as commercial. You classify as short film, and I love that because I definitely see the distinction, not just in the title, but in the work itself. You're not just creating I mean, even some of them you reference a spec ad, but you're not just creating an ad. You're creating a story. You're creating a narrative. But I say a narrative. There's very little dialogue in many of these, but you create that emotion, that draw, that pull that we get when we go to the theaters, oftentimes, and it's really beautiful. Just what I've seen from y'all.
Well, that's kind. I mean, I think the idea of like, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, when you're obsessed with story, like the solve to every problem is a story. Mm-hmm. And so when we work with clients and they kind of go, hey, we have this challenge, this communication challenge. Here's a recruitment issue that we're having, or a fundraising issue that we're having, or this, that, or the other, where we see every solution as the right angle on a story,
Well, I think a lot of it's about engagement too. Like just what's fun to watch, what's engaging to watch, what's something that will pull you into something that you might stick around to watch the ending of. When we approach things from that angle, we always end up answering that question with, well, it's got to be a story.
Yeah, that's the hope. Is that most stuff that we were looking at, other work that proved to be successful businesses, we weren't necessarily kind of lit up by, because it felt like homework a lot of the time. It feels like a commercial, or when things feel like you're being taught something, or sold something, or this, that, or the other. Just as like, I don't know. I'm one of those that just kind of gets a little prickly at that. And so finding a way in with character and emotion first is a better way to spend our time, I think.
Well, and I do want to talk about a few specific projects that you've done, and we'll do that in a moment. But I do want to ask, because it is so story driven, which of you, or how do y'all, and I don't want to get too much into the process, because I do have a follow-up question later that does deal with your process, but who has the background that really fed into this? Like I know one of you've already mentioned the idea of writing, but is that something that y'all all have sort of background in, or is it a specific one that really has that writing background?
Really, all of us in different ways. Yeah, I mean, Greyson and I probably approached it more from early childhood, from just storytelling and cinematic storytelling, like obsession with movies, which translates into an obsession with writing. And Kevin came at it from the same standpoint, but from more of an oral communication.
Yeah, I was a pastor for 10 years and really kind of grew up really fascinated with just the idea of like literally telling a story and having conversations with people and talking, and what does it mean for something to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and to be traceable as you talk through something. And then that kind of developed into just a love of communication, and how do you take an idea and speak it in a way that somebody else can take it with them. They can understand what you meant and get the message that you want them to receive, and then either take that into their life or take that into their, environment or whatever it is. I really kind of became obsessed with that idea and just researching and trying and exploring and creating in that kind of realm. Preaching became just a real passion of mine that I spent a lot of time, like specifically trying to figure out how to tell a story that has been told over and over and over again. And it's just been a lot of time trying to kind of crack that open and go, okay, if this has been communicated and told in kind of every way imaginable, how do you do it in a way that people still want to listen to and engage with? And so spend a lot of time in church and in ministry specifically focused on the idea of preaching and how do you kind of package a message in a way that can still be intriguing when maybe everybody knows the ending.
Yeah, I think it's really cool how so many people get their start in the video space or even in the creative space in general in churches, especially in the South, it seems. But I myself, my inspiration to begin teaching this kind of stuff, because I was in the, I'm still in education. Sorry. But my inspiration to even start was my old youth pastor, who was also a graphic designer. And then even Harrison, speaking of, I didn't even mention the fact that Harrison plugged you, but Harrison Tarabella, I understand he got his start basically doing ministry stuff, as well as Aaron Wilhite, who are my two previous guests. But let me go ahead and say, since I've brought him up, Harrison did, because I asked him, one of the questions I asked, which I'll ask y'all later, is like, who inspires you today? And his inspiration were the three of you. And he mentioned the fact that that I couldn't talk with y'all gear necessarily, or I say couldn't, that you wouldn't talk gear with me, like he and I did. Instead, he said that you will talk story with me, because he said that that's what y'all sort of like live and bleed, so to speak.
He knows this well.
Yeah, that's a
pretty accurate. Yeah. Yeah, it's not that we hate gear, but we kind of also hate gear. It's more of like a necessary evil in our minds, where it's just like, it's a line item that costs, not something that always excites us. But it's like a solution, a means to an end. The things that we get excited about are more stories and characters and people and that kind of stuff. But that's really sweet.
Obviously, you do a great job with that, and what we'll look at soon, and what I've already looked at. So
that's super kind. Yeah. That's great.
All right, let's look at a little bit more here. Okay, so this is us getting started into some of your work. I was looking at this video earlier. I'll go ahead and actually pull up this and try to let it just play in the background while we talk about it. I want to try and make sure it's not going to blare in our ears. So pardon if it's okay. It's muted. Good. Which I hate to mute it, to be honest, just because of the fact that the audio on this video is so great. But talk about this. I understand it's a spec ad that you did. Talk about it just a little bit briefly while we are able to watch it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, this one's a fun one in that it was during the pandemic, and a couple of friends of ours, our kind of go-to gaffer and our go-to cinematographer, Sean Kirby, who we work with a lot as a cinematographer, and John Champion, who's in town in Birmingham here, we work a lot with as a gaffer. They had been on a commercial, and they were like, they both had some downtime. Again, it was the pandemic, and they said, let's just do something. Let's get some people together and let's do something. And they had been wanting to do some car work. Car work is that kind of thing where it's like, you don't really get the opportunity to do it until you show somebody that you can do it, you know? And so they called us, and we're like, here's what we want to do. We have some free time. Do y'all have some free time? We said, yeah, and we're slow right now. In a couple of weeks, we could pull something together. And it was kind of like they had some ideas about some of this stuff, about legacy and different things, maybe a father-son thing. And we just kind of developed that. And I wrote a bunch of stuff that I was interested in at the time, which kind of made its way in there, some like medieval stuff and kind of Arthurian legends and some father-daughter things that I was thinking about, and kind of wrote a really loose outline and turned that into a shot list. We didn't write a script. It was more like, here's a rough idea, and I wanted to approach it sort of improvisationally. So we found this amazing Julian Joyner, this amazing actress / stunt woman, She was really experienced in stunts and wanted to move more into the acting space, and brought her over from New Orleans, and we just kind of like improvised a lot and shot as we went and shot for 2 days. But it was beginning to end from the time that they called and were like, let's get our buds together and make something, to shooting it was probably like 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. So it wasn't a ton of it wasn't very precious, which is great. It's kind of, let's just get friends together and do something. And of course, like everything that could have gone wrong absolutely went wrong. Nothing went as planned on the shoot.
That might be a bit of an understatement.
Yeah, but you end up with just enough footage to try to make something out of and express some of those ideas about the sort of haunted ghost legacy time travel thing that I was interested in at the time. Somewhere, hopefully, kind of found its way in there. It's not what we set out to make, but hopefully it's cool.
I totally get that. It really is just a beautiful piece. Which of you, or do all three of you, or do you have somebody else that does your editing, like specifically the cutting?
Yeah, we end up doing, it's kind of all over the place. I cut this one and directed this one. But like if Greyson's directing something, he usually edits it. Mm-hmm. There's the occasion where like I'll direct something and you edit it. You direct something and I edit it. It kind of depends on our schedule, just work-wise. But usually the person that writes and directs it is taking it through the finish line. It's not the most efficient way to work, but it is it's what you know, and it's kind of like the direct line of intention to output. It's trying to close that gap.
Well, the music to it, especially when she starts driving and when the real emotion just sort of hits, you flash over and see her dad sitting there that's coming up soon. Like that whole moment, I mean, it really gets you. It really just captures your attention. It draws you in. It makes you feel something sort of deep down. And this is only probably, I don't know that this was the first one I saw of yours. Because I only came across your page recently, me and my coworker, as we were looking at story in general. I think we came across some of your stuff, and then Harrison mentioned you, and I went back and reviewed. But this one and the next one we're going to be looking at, both of them just sort of hits you down deep. So I mean, props first of all, and second of all, like, how do you really find that moment? How do you make sure that you hit that sort of note, so to speak? And there's that moment where her dad's there. It's really powerful.
I mean, I can answer that question from the outside looking in. For me, the reason why that payoff is so sweet is that you open with a really great question in the very beginning, with her opening up the garage door, uncovering the car, hugging the leather jacket really tight, and then you have those quick flashbacks to her dad back in time whenever she was a little girl. And then the rest of the piece you spend watching her endeavor towards trying to remedy this sadness that she's got as she's hugging this jacket. So that moment that you're talking about when her dad finally appears is like, in some strange, good way, the accomplishment of her goal, what she's been going after. So that's why I love it, because by the end of the 5 minutes, you're like, yes, she did it.
Yeah, I think it's good to keep in mind, like, it's something about trying to earn that. It's kind of so easy to be manipulative. Like, you get good quality sound music and slow motion footage, and it's kind of easy to be cheap. You know what I mean? And like Greyson was talking about, that question at the beginning is our kind of core storytelling philosophy, is that idea of ask a question at the beginning and sort of discipline and emotion and creativity, refuse to answer that question until the end. We always talk about like the difference in something that is 30 seconds long but feels like it goes on for 30 minutes, and something that's 30 minutes long and feels like it flies by in 30 seconds is one of those asked a question and immediately answered it and reiterated that question, which to an audience feels like, oh, this could go on forever. This has an indefinite feel. It doesn't feel like it's moving towards something. Whereas the alternate is like a murder mystery. You show the murder and then you ask the question, well, who did it? And it's human instinct to just stick around for as long as it takes to get that answer. So if you can be disciplined and you can find new ways of asking it and new ways of deepening that question as you go, and then sort of watch a journey towards that answer, hopefully what's happening with an audience is like you can earn it. You can just like build brick by brick a wall that slowly leads to something that's worth paying off. And then hopefully those moments when you're writing, you don't think about it that methodically. It's just hopefully instinctual. Hopefully you put enough good stories and books and movies and stuff in your bones to where like, you know it when you see it, you just make instinctual decisions that get you to a moment or two like that.
I used to, I was a teacher in the classroom and taught marketing, but taught it with more of a creative spin. It was the content creation of marketing. But one of the things I used to always tell students is, I don't necessarily believe you're born an artist. I believe we develop our artistic ability, so to speak, or our artistic eye. And I say that meaning I think maybe we're all born artists, but some almost like lose it and then some retain it in different ways. But my point in it was always like expose yourself to art, to like beautiful things, to great stories like what you're talking about. And the more you expose yourself to those things, or are exposed even as a child by sometimes by parents, like you've sort of fine-tuned that artistic style of yours and almost develop artistry more so.
I think, yeah, it's like the process for me of growing up was like finding things that made sense to me. You find movies or music or books or whatever where you're like, whatever's happening here on this page speaks to me. I don't know what it is, but I get it. And this is for me and I'm for it, whatever it is. And there's something great in adolescence. It's like kind of forming your taste and forming your perspective on the world, but it also is like really, the reason we make art is like to not feel alone. When you can find something that makes you feel like, oh, somebody else feels what I feel, that's such a lovely feeling, of communal sort of feeling like, I've got a place, especially as a younger person. So yeah, that was definitely the process. And it shapes those instincts so that later on you're making decisions and they're not really coming straight out of you. They're coming out of you filtered through, thousands and thousands of stories that you've put in over time.
I need your filter. I need all three of your filters. I feel like so maybe I can develop some of that myself. But it all looks great, guys, what you are doing. All right, let's move on to the next one. And this one is the one I was talking about that just really hit me. First of all, let me ask. I guess before we get into it too much, let me ask: Are you? And I know at least one of you, because I think I've stalked your Facebook enough to know that one of you is a dad times two, right? Is okay. All right. Are either of the others a dad?
Not yet. No.
Okay. All right. I'm just telling you right now, like this story right here. I'm a dad of 4 kids. I have 3 girls and 1 boy, and just like even watching my wife with our daughters, like so much of that hit me with this video. And I'm a uncle to adopted boys, 3 adopted boys, and have seen, foster like situations, in their lives. And it's just, y'all did such a beautiful job telling this story. If you would just sort of tell me a little bit about it, while we sort of let it run, in the background here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, this one was also made with our friend, Sean Kirby. He came down. This was a much lower budget, smaller crew kind of setup, but he came down and helped us shoot this. Is this organization, Alabama Baptist Children's Homes, they had what we were talking about before, that, hey, we have this problem and it's foster care recruitment. We go, okay, what are you hearing from foster parents? And they say, well, the thing that we're hearing mostly, people go through classes and then they get to this moment where they realize like, oh, this is going to be really hard. And it's not so much the process that we're worried about, it's the saying goodbye that we're worried about. So we go, okay, well, that's interesting. That's a problem that creativity can solve. So we approached it like that. And we said, like, let's write a story that essentially asks the question, if the answer is, yes, it's hard, and the joy and the pain and all of that, the journey is very difficult and beautiful and hard and all the things. The answer is it's worth it. So the question is it worth it? Can we show that process from the beginning of somebody doing the separation, the thing that we're already worried about, and then find a creative way of building the history? And that's where a concept like, her house is like some sort of museum or something for these memories, and each room, like all of our houses do, carry the weight of an emotion that come with what happened inside them. So just trying to find a clever way in, like what Kevin was talking about earlier, make it entertaining and engaging, but essentially ask that question of like, okay, you see a woman in mourning right there at the beginning, some sort of separation is taking place, and then build the question of like, but is it worth it? Why go through this? Why go through this pain? And you try to create a shape in there that asks that question in different ways. And then you create a little bit of lift at a certain point that goes, whoa, a breakthrough. It's just something small and gentle, like making a grilled cheese sandwich. But that gives you a little bit, and just enough to keep going. And then it takes a dip and somebody has a tantrum and it goes back up and we're playing. And, the way that life is similar to you, like having seen this experience play out in the lives of people that I know and love, not having kids of my own, was like, it's all just sort of right there. So you try to just do something that is speaking directly to their problem as an organization and their audience to help them with their problem of recruitment without being too, over the top or hitting them over the head with it. It's almost like trying to invite them in to see themselves in the situation as opposed to talking at them or telling them what to do or how to feel.
I think y'all did such a great job with like touching on really sensitive issues, but doing it through a full story. Like you even said, like there's painful moments that are really challenging, whether you're talking about fostering or adopting or just parenting in general. But then there's also those like moments of joy, and the fact that you were able to display both of them together, it really, I think, grounds this story so much. And that's why I think I appreciate, and I'm going to say longer form content because it's not that 30-second spec ad that we see a lot of times, or even the 14-second, reel that everyone's sort of pushing for now. It is that longer form content that really allows a full story to be told, but still in such a concise way and manner. And this part, especially whenever and let me go ahead and say, I apologize. And I'm sharing these with no audio right now because that's such an injustice to your sound design, because the sound of this really just sort of sets it off. But this part, just her emotions of fear for that previous child. And then that, and then sort of the payoff at the end when the next boy shows up. It's really a beautiful story. Y'all did such a great job with it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, when I hadn't watched this in there, but yeah, more like it's also maybe something coming out of just trying to make things to work with actors. The actor Stephanie Butler in this piece was like somebody I wanted to work with for a while, and so you kind of are also just trying to make something that would be worth their time, just as being obsessed with actors and wanting to work with actors. Because when I watch that back, the things that I'm looking at is not the visuals or watching it without sound even. It's like the thing that to me works about that is the actors in it.
I can tell you when I first watched this piece after the edit, like obviously it's there during the writing and the filming of all of it. When I watched the edit, I just like was weeping and just like got up and left the room and was like kind of angry that I had been caused to emote so much on a Tuesday. I was like, I can't do this. Like it just something about that content just hit me with having a daughter of my own. Like I was like, I can't handle this.
Yeah. Kevin, Greyson and I have had to learn that Kevin is no longer an objective judge of whether or not something's working when it comes to like stories with kids.
Yeah. We'll be sitting around and like this question that Ethan keeps talking about, we call the central question. And so anytime we approach a project, we always try to figure out what is that central question. And there are times now where I'm embarrassed to admit, but we'll come up with the central question and I'll already start crying. It's just like
the question ends up being like, can they make you cry?
I have become sappier than a Lowe's Christmas tree.
And it's an easy question to answer nowadays.
Yeah, I know, it's too easy to make him cry.
Yeah.
It's like my desk is right here. We're kind of sitting at my workstation, and then Kevin's is right there. And I'll be like, hey, will you just watch this? Something's not feeling right about this edit. I'm trying to figure out what's bumping me. And he'll just start crying, and I'm like, tag him, all right, Greyson, come here.
and then I'm in my office across the hall, and Kevin comes in and just sits down and just doesn't say anything. I'm like, oh no, Ethan showed him something. I know it, but it must be working, so I guess that's good.
It does happen.
Hey, I feel for you, man, because my wife used to refer to me as sort of almost like a stone wall at times, and which was crazy because when we were dating back in high school, I was not a stone wall at all, and then parenting, especially parenting babies and letting them sort of grow up a little bit, I think it hardens you a little bit at times. But here recently, I just turned 40. This like just a couple of weeks ago, and it feels like 35 to 40. I've just become like a puddle at times. I mean, I'll watch movies. I watched A Man Called Otto recently, which has a lot of that like husband and wife and questioning the purpose of life kind of stuff. Man, I weeped, like not just crying, like I weeped, and then I did it again watching this stinking commercial y'all did. So I mean, I totally get it and agree that that's probably a really good judge of a great story.
That's what we're going for. I mean, the hope is, just the beauty of stories and especially working with like nonprofit organizations is the power a story has to force empathy on an audience. Like, I don't know what it feels like to actually be a little girl, but I can tell a story. I can shoot and show a situation or a circumstance through a little girl's eyes, or go watch a movie, and I can, I can be in her shoes. I can feel that, whatever it is. It could be totally outlandish, something in a galaxy far, far away, or but you feel it. You just like it's you don't have a choice in the matter of seeing something through somebody else's point of view, and that's a really like healthy thing, right? For like our times, and if that can be leveraged for organizations to get people on board with the work that they're about, the problems that they're trying to solve, the people that they're trying to serve. It's like story's the way to do that.
Yeah. And I've heard, I think I've heard it said that stories are what distinguish like humans from the animals in a lot of ways. Like stories are unique to humans. And I think it's neat. It's always been neat to sort of see how we sort of can almost come together around a good story.
Yeah. Something about trying to just explain who we are, why we're here, what's going on is like the human experience. We're just trying to kind of look at one another and go, yeah, you too? Is that going on for you as well? Yeah.
Sorry, Greyson, I keep blocking you out. He has to. Yeah, you have to keep migrating back over. Okay, so then this other one is one of your music videos, which I think is really cool that y'all have been able to take. I mean, it's sort of the same thing. It's which music videos are a little bit more known for stories, especially I think of growing up with country music. I always think of country music as there's always a story, usually a dog and a man losing his wife in his truck, but he's still got his dog, or there's some joke along those lines. But anyway, I love first of all, let me say this. I love the look of this. Am I right that y'all shot this on film?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Same DP. You're 3 for 3 on our buddy Sean Kirby.
Now, did y'all do the spec ad with the car on film?
No, that was shot on a Sony Venice camera. Nice. It's like a large format camera.
Given the film treatment to kind of make it feel more filmic. But
yeah, Greyson did the grade on the car thing and really kind of grunged it up and gave it as much texture as he could get into it.
Yeah, it looked great. And this one definitely, I mean, it has that feel that I see so many people sort of going for now. I mean, like people try to emulate sort of that film look. But this is such a great. It's a little puzzling for me in some ways, like what really is happening here. Just the emotion all the way through it, and I credit these actors. And are these the artists themselves?
So the guy wrote the song and recorded it like 10 years ago or more. We did this in 2020. Probably shot it in June, maybe.
Yeah, it was in the summer because it was really hot. I remember that.
So it was kind of early pandemic, and obviously we just started our company, and Kevin and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, man, we said we would make films, and like, times are slow right now. And we had an idea. We were driving to a job, and this old song came on. We know the artist and Preston, and we listened to this old song that we listened to 100 times already, in our lives, and just kind of started talking about this idea and just kind of wrote it or spoke it all out and said, well, that could be something. And, when you feel that sort of inspiration, you're almost like duty bound to like explore it a little further. And so we called Preston and said, do you want to do this? And he was like, yeah, I'd come down to Birmingham and do that with y'all. And so, yeah, we put it together. And same thing with like Kirby. He had some film left over. We bought a little bit more film. It was really tight. We ended up shooting all the film we had, and we still had a day left to go. So we had to overnight send somebody we sent a runner to Nashville.
So like a physical person to drive to Nashville to pick up this stuff in time.
Like, which was 800 feet of film. And yeah, it was a chaotic experience, and very, very hot. Everything's the next year. And it was like in the middle of COVID. So you're trying to work and give people some work, pay some people, but also be like safe. Greyson, you were living in Atlanta at the time, right?
I think I might have been in New Orleans.
You were in New Orleans?
Yeah.
And like he came over, so it's the same thing. We just brought some friends together and said, let's work. Let's do something right now. But it's nerve-wracking too. You're shooting film. And
I can only imagine with film. I paused it here mainly because I recognized this. This is off of Valleybell, the old.
Where do you teach? Where do you teach?
So I taught in Jefferson County, Birmingham's in the middle of it, for 9 years. And now I currently live and work in Shelby County. And so I was a teacher at Calera High School not too long ago. And now I currently work for the district for Shelby County Schools doing video and photography and graphics.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm an Oak Mountain graduate from all the way back in the day. So
nice.
Being in Shelby County, that might be why you recognize this location. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. So John, do you know John Milton?
I don't know that I do.
Okay, so he does TV production, like they do video, TV, a lot of like he's got a studio. They do music video kind of stuff as well. I work with teachers like him as well, sort of helping them and equipping them, training them to teach this kind of stuff as well. So, but anyway, I saw this location and I was like, I know this place. I've actually shot a video in here for one of my daughters it was like a book trailer she was doing. And I was like, oh, I know this beautiful, like moody place. Let's go. It's one of those classic moments where the dad's like, wait a minute, you get to do a video for your project? Let's do it. And I took over the whole thing by the end of it.
Yeah. Can't help yourself. Yeah. No, I get that.
But this is such a beautiful location. And I love what y'all did. Now, were y'all able to like smash that sheetrock that was already there? Did y'all put up some sheetrock to smash?
There was a whole, I would rather not point out where this is, but
my bad.
We've been cleared with the sheriff's department to be there and to film there. We put up some sheetrock that then we tore down. So we took away, we left it just like we found it, and we had permission to be there. So
no, I did not have permission when I was there, but I didn't bust anything or do anything like that. But
it had to be that way too, because we were putting lights behind it and stuff, and so it had to be removable. And I think we had 2 sheets and let them do it twice. Like we just kind of roughed it up. Kevin, I remember, like broke it up to try to make it look like not just a 4x8 sheet of sheetrock up there. And then very fun to let a talented actor just give her a crowbar and say, go nuts.
Well, it's a great looking video. I'm not going to take, I don't want to keep going with this, even though this is such a great video. I want to be able to move on to a little bit more about y'all and about your process. And I don't want to keep you any longer than I have to. So anyway, let's move on. But again, beautiful video there that you've made. All right, so let's talk story since it. I mean, like Harrison said, y'all aren't going to talk gear with me that much, which I may test later if we have time. I may test that theory, but let's do talk story. How important is story? And which I know you've pretty much already hammered that home, I feel like. But what would you say maybe that we just haven't covered about story, especially thinking about people that are just getting started with trying to tell a good story using video? What would you say to them? I'll leave it at that and let you talk.
I don't know. You want to say something?
I mean, I think the question, I think I've disappeared. I think the question part is very important. I think one of the things is like, I feel like it can be hard to tell a story, it can be hard to tell a good story, but it can be very natural to tell a story. Like, I think most people understand just the structure of telling something that happened with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And as soon as you have a beginning, a middle, and an end, you have the building blocks of a compelling story. All you need to add in there is like some intrigue and some details that move you through those standpoints. It's like you don't want to bog down at any one of those turns. You want to move through them in a way that kind of compels you all the way to the end. And I think for a lot of people, they can get kind of hung up on like, how do I make this a good story? And they forget how to just tell a story, which I think in a lot of ways is like a natural thing. Like every one of us has conversations every day about what do we do this weekend? This crazy thing happened when I went to the store. You know, this thing happened to me in my childhood. This is a funny story. This is a sad story. This is a happy story. Whatever those things are, like I think every human being to a certain extent is a storyteller. And in a lot of ways, it's like, you just have to kind of dig into yourself and find what means something to you and start to put flesh on those bones. And hopefully, you know, other people will find it compelling too.
Yeah, I think so. It's for whatever reason, it feels sometimes like an afterthought. It feels like people often, maybe the gear or the technique, or, you know, when you search filmmaking online or look at YouTube, it's like, it's tutorials and video essays and this kind of stuff for days, but very little about how you yourself structure, approach, figure out the inner workings of a story. But at the end of the day, like the stuff that I like, no matter what category it fits in, a great wedding video or commercial or a narrative piece or documentary, it's like the stuff that I respond to is the stuff where that is the thing. The number one is story. The number one, tied with number one, is actors. You know, that's what I respond to. All the other stuff, if you're leading with, and there's like no, you know, I don't want throw shade on anything, but there's a lot that's out there that I just like. It's not for me. Not to say it's not good or like approachable, but basically, if it doesn't have that piece, I just can't really engage with it. There's a lot of beautiful dance videos and cinematography and or interpretive dance or different sort of experimental films that I can see a ton of merit in, but they're just not for me. So just it's almost just like that's the most honest thing that we can do, and we've found each other kind of united, found each other along the way in this filmmaking journey, united by that one thing, that it's like story is the number one. And so that's how we found each other, and that's the stuff that we're mutually excited about, and that's the stuff that we make. Not to say it's the only way, but it's just the only way we know how, and the only thing we're really interested in.
All right. So you mentioned the second most important thing is, and maybe even tied with the first, is the idea of actors, especially thinking of Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, we're not known as like the actor capital of the world. What kind of challenges do you face there, or maybe what kind of resources are there that people don't even know about for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I would approach it kind of twofold. One, there is a community and there are working actors, if not in Birmingham, like just all over the Southeast, that is like really robust and talented artists. And they're here and they're ready to work and they're mega talented. They're not names all the time, not famous in that regard, but like talented character actors. That is to me like the reason to do filmmaking. There's a lot of other stuff that I get very excited about. I'm a very visual person, all that kind of stuff I can talk about all day. We could talk about gear all day, but the thing that gets my heart rate up is watching an actor take words that you wrote or a situation that you kind of conjured and put it up in real life right in front of you, and you're watching that in front of you or through the monitor. There's something that is like pure magic about that to me. But you talked about this earlier, mentioning that a lot of our stuff does not have dialogue in it. That came out of a sort of a desire to work with or still make films when you didn't have access to professional actors. Can we still tell stories in that way, but treat them almost like silent films? If we're working with people who are real people, which is a lot of what we do. Like if we're doing something for a university, we're just using the students that are at that university. We're working with a specific organization. Oftentimes we're just using the people that work there or connected to that organization. And the goal is to just like find people who are not afraid. You can do anything, with people who just like aren't afraid of being in front of the camera. And even if they are, there's a lot that you can do to just calm them and get there and connect with them and make them feel less afraid. So even when we don't have access to professional actors, it's still the number one. We just find techniques of like telling those stories more visually. The story is told by what they do, not what they say. And trying to just still keep it about people, I guess. Mm-hmm. So it's like maybe my number one is like actors and people.
Well, and we've talked about not a lot of dialogue, but the dialogue that you did put into the into the car spec ad, like that poem that you included is such a beautiful piece, and the way that y'all sort of entwined it with the story was so great. So even though we're not talking about direct dialogue that the actors always did, I mean in some cases you do with the foster care, there was more dialogue there, but still so much of it was communicated in very little dialogue. But that poem that you included, I believe I've got it pulled up, "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep" by Mary Elizabeth Fry. That was such a beautiful poem and so well included. So props on that, definitely.
I think there's something about when it is more visually told and you do have something a bit more sparse, it pulls your attention to that a lot more, right? Because you're not it's not like you've been talked to all 5 minutes of that piece. We said something at the beginning and you're sort of left wanting more or with a lot of breathing room in between. And when it comes back again, it has a new feeling now. That's one thing that we're always talking about when we're working on an edit is like, what new what have you done for me lately? Almost, like you're as an audience member, are we doing the same thing for too long? Have we created some sort of dynamics or some sort of shape to this, whether it's musically or with dialogue or whatever tools are at our disposal to sort of like just change things up and keep this train moving one direction. You don't want to feel like you're stuck on the tracks. That's the worst thing in the world. And the best thing in the world is to not know what's coming next. The worst thing in the world is to feel like we're stuck and this can never, it could go on forever.
It's never going to end.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get a little serious then. Okay.
Oh man!
Wow.
What?
Facebook. I knew I should have deleted Facebook.
Yeah, this is why you do what Greyson did and clean up your social media presence.
Well, obviously not that great, right?
I don't know what this is from. It's not bad.
Wow. This looks like a homecoming or something.
Yeah.
That's some flow.
I was homeschooled, so any dance event that I went to was a pretty big deal. I was like, I'm a real student now.
Do you have braces on?
It's either braces or like fresh out of them.
Wow.
You're flashing pearly lights. You're proud of them.
Yeah. Look how straight.
It feels. I really couldn't tell you what this is.
It's actually one of the very first pictures on your Facebook.
That checks out because I look dang good.
There you go. There you go. You were like, hey, this gotta live on forever.
If I ever got a shot, this is the photo.
Yeah. All right. So can we talk about these middle two pictures here?
Yeah, we can. This
What is
top here would be my first MacBook Pro that had photo booth with photo effects.
Oh, yeah, photo booth.
I forgot that was even a feature on the Macs, man. I haven't looked at that in a long time.
Remember what that filter was called?
No idea, but I'm pretty sure that still exists. You could probably make one today.
Yeah, I don't know if it still exists. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it used to always show up as like this grid that had a bunch of different effects, and then you could pick one to go full screen with.
That's what was happening here.
Yeah.
This
all right, what's this
photo? I was in college at Auburn. I was playing ultimate frisbee one night and collided with a guy and got cut on the head. Like we collided, got cut on the head, was bleeding everywhere, and I've got a T-shirt just on my head holding the wound. And we're freshmen in college, and we don't know what to do, where to go. So somebody's like, "Oh, my friend is a nursing student. She'll know what to do."
Yeah. Sure.
And so we run to her
taking a
dorm.
pre-res.
This is in the lobby of her dorm room. And she comes running downstairs, and she's got like a first aid kit and all these things. And I've got this T-shirt on my head, and she runs over, and I like take the shirt off, and she looks at my head, and all she says is like, "Oh, you're gonna need to go to the hospital." That was all she had for me. Was not like, we can clean this up, we can do something. So we took a little trip to the old East Alabama Medical Center and went to the emergency room at midnight. It was an experience.
The decision to let the blood run down your nose that far feels like a dramatic choice.
It was almost immediate. Like, I don't know if you've ever cut your head. I have multiple times. It just bleeds.
Yeah. I will speak to that as well. My head, if it gets cut, there's nothing up there to stop it from just even with hair, I think it'll flow pretty good. But I am glad to hear that a well-trained nurse told you exactly what to do, which was go to a doctor.
Yeah, right. I mean, she sent us probably in the right direction. So.
How none of your knucklehead friends weren't looking at that face and like, they thought it was.
Their natural response was, "Oh, our friend can handle it."
Yeah.
All right. What about this last photo over here?
I have no idea.
You still look exactly the same.
You think so?
I think so.
I look ghostly. I look like
even though you're outside, it doesn't look like you've gotten a tan.
This is, I think, the days of editing in a dark room. They started for me when I was about 13, so I've never quite maintained a healthy, tan level. It looks like I'm camping or something. Look at that very like mid or early aughts watch. Just a thick leather band on a. Oh, nice. That was a Belk special.
You're staying hydrated, which is good.
Yeah.
All right. So, what would you tell these guys? I mean, obviously now we've got new guys that are like this, right? Hopefully not bleeding from their head as much, but I mean, there's people that are just starting out. They look at somebody like Cedar Creative, and they're like, "Man, how can I get there? Like, what can I do? What do I need to be doing right now to one day, whenever I'm an adult, like to get there?"
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm. I think when I started working doing films when I was younger, I was really preoccupied with doing things right, and it was born out of a good instinct, which is listen to all the greats talk about how they do things, and I kind of developed this attitude of, all right, well, if the DP of Blade Runner had this light, then that's probably what I need to use for this scene that I kind of want to feel like Blade Runner. And it stifled my enthusiasm for a lot of things, because I felt like, if I don't have all these tools in place, this particular camera lens, this camera, this crane shot that I want to do, whatever, then I can't tell a story well. And I have been slowly and steadily deconstructing that mentality over time to have fun with the constraints presented and see them more as an opportunity to do something new and fresh and make it happen with every scenario. Part of that is the more that I listen to the upper tier budget movies, they're still complaining about budgets and gear limitations. So it became evident to me that that's never something that's just going to be solved. you're always going to have that frustration about what you have available. And the fun of the process is doing what you can with that and making the best thing out of that. So that's what I would tell my younger self is like, just don't be so preoccupied with the right way to do things. Find the fun in doing them the best way that you can with what you have.
I heard somebody recently talk about how I think they were talking about maybe an art gallery or maybe an art studio, and they were saying that every artist should have like the chronology of their work. They shouldn't just have their latest, greatest work. They should have their worst first work, because of the fact that it shows the growth, it shows the process, it shows, it shows people that these are real and raw, and you can do it too, sort of. And I think the same thing with video. I think, unfortunately, way too many times we look at each other's like best work ever, but we don't go back and look at, let me see their very first video, the very first thing they ever edited where they were really trying to tell a story. Because I think that inspires somebody to be able to look at the difference, but also to be able to look at maybe some of those similarities. That's where we get to start seeing their like traits that, I mean, in your case, I would love to see one day y'all's early stories where maybe you didn't have the gear, you didn't have the, maybe not even the actor, but you had that spark of an idea, and you did the best you could with what you had at the time, but then you've grown since then.
Hopefully. Yeah, whoever recommended putting your entire body of work in chronological order is a braver person than I am. Clearly, this is like turning into, I need to examine myself and how I feel about my backstory.
I know you've been filtering your social media for far too long. Just unleash, be yourself.
Real, man. Yeah, that's a good argument. I had not thought about that because I have often I've honestly not done it out of any sort of righteous motivation. It's just like too lazy to go back and delete or make private old films on like my personal Vimeo account. But yeah, there's stuff dating back a long time, like 15 years. So
I didn't dig deep enough, it sounds like.
Yeah, you could go back and find some stuff. I mean, I started doing this when I was 12, 13 years old. So there's some old oldies out there, but maybe I won't. Maybe I won't go back and delete them. That's a great argument for not doing that.
Don't do it, man. And when younger people, or even I'm probably older than all of y'all, so even people like me that comes along wanting to learn from you, like, point them in those directions. I encourage that kind of stuff. I mean, if you follow my stuff on social, you'll see videos of me and my kids, and you'll see a Harpo voiceover that I did at one point with one of our family trips, trying to be all like thought provoking. And it's like, why did I do that? My kids hear that and they're like, stop it, Dad. Like, that was awful. Don't do that again. So
awesome.
When you talk about like looking back at those three guys and what would you tell them, or would you tell somebody in a similar position? Like, I think for me, I would say like you've got to try to find those other people. Like, none of us could do what we're doing alone, and this has been like built together, and it's been built together on purpose. And I think like, I always kind of say like, I'm not a big advice giver because I'm not really a big advice taker. But if I had advice to give, it would be like, look around you and find the people that are kind of a kindred spirit in telling stories and doing the kind of things you want to do and interested in the same sort of things, and start to form bonds and start to make, kind of deep connections with people that you could build something together with. Because it's, in my opinion, it's a lot easier, it's a lot faster, but it's also a lot more fun to build something with people than it is to try to like lift those big rocks on your own. And I think like that's a big part of like why we're still around and why we're still doing this, and why we're any version of like making it would be because we're like doing it together. And so if I was like talking to my 18-year-old self bleeding out in the dorm room, I would be like, don't forget the people around you. It's like you find the people around, the ones that you connect with and you can build something with, and that's how you build anything at all.
I picture the idea of telling a story of something that happened to you by yourself. But then I also think of a time when you got to tell a story of what happened to you and your friends, and you got to tell it with your friends. You know what I mean? Like there was so much more energy when a group of you could come together and almost talk over each other. Oh yeah. Like this happened then. And like that's an even better experience. So I agree. Like the people that you're working with, the people that you're telling the stories with, that experience is almost just as good as the actual experience of having something out there or getting paid to do something, So that's awesome. All right. So I want to be conscious of your time. I've probably taken up way too much already, but let's go ahead and let's tackle one, and then we'll come back to that one. So I do want, this is sort of the point of this whole deal, sort of what I'm trying to do. Greyson, make sure you're in the shot. But my goal in this is to sort of like, I went to Aaron Wilhite first, and I said, Aaron, like you inspire me. Like I mean, there's a lot of people that have inspired me, but I went to him and I said, okay, well now who inspires you? And then he said, Harrison Tarabella. And I said, okay, well, Harrison, you inspired Aaron. Now who inspires you? And he sent me to Cedar Creative. So my question to you now is who is it that's out there that you're maybe working with at times, or maybe that you communicate with at times? Who is it that you are inspired by that perhaps I can talk to next?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing the faces of a lot of collaborators, a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Birmingham's in a really interesting spot with just a lot of great artists in a lot of different fields. But a couple people that came to mind, I've already mentioned a couple times, but John Champion, who runs Champion Lighting and Grip, is just like such a craftsman, such an artisan, but also such a decent human and a good hang that he's one of those where you're just like, he's always going to get the phone call. As long as he keeps picking up for us, he's always going to get the phone call, because he's just like, he can solve any problem. He never gets flustered. He is always kind. He's always a good teacher for younger people we bring on set. But he's also so talented and so qualified at what he does.
That sounds like a great option for the next person to hopefully be on Creating Creators podcast, because I would love to diversify a little bit. I mean, not that. I mean, I think there's already been good diversity among the three that I've already talked with. But I love the idea of somebody that's not necessarily just in the camera world or in the actual like producing of content, but rather even more of maybe one of those auxiliary roles that some play. So I think that sounds like a great one.
1,000%, because having somebody like John, where he's got years and years of experience and expertise on shaping light, managing a set really well and really calmly. Like, I would always rather shoot something on an iPhone and bring John on than rent an expensive camera and lens package. I would always rather put that money towards his history and expertise than into more stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to that other image there, just what's next? And let me just see. Yeah. Let's end or sort of wrap up on this. Just what's next for Cedar Creative? What do y'all see sort of in your near future or even your long future?
More matching socks.
Yes. And maybe tattoos, working on it.
Yeah. There you go. I like that. Yeah. The matching socks was definitely great. Can we talk about the fourth person in this photo real quick?
Yes, we should. Yeah.
He's like a ghost.
So he's in the other room here in our office. We have another company called Cedar Avenue that we're a part of. So it's kind of a company that exists within our company that handles a very different kind of clientele than we do. Preston is one of those people that we've known for years and years and years, who, like, his first set that he was ever on was one of my sets, and has come up and developed into a really talented artist himself. And so we started working with him in an official capacity, bringing him full time on board a year and a half ago.
About a year ago.
And yeah, he's just an awesome dude, an awesome man.
Okay. All right. So props to him. And I think I've seen his name on some of your credits from some of the videos that even we watched today. But go ahead and tell me, so what do you see other than matching socks and tattoos? Is there anything as far as is there any upcoming projects that you're really excited about that you are currently working on or maybe finalizing or even just in the pre-production stage of it still?
Yeah.
We've got a full slate. Basically through the fall, we are booked out making the projects that we love, which is a lot of narrative fictional content, a little bit of commercial stuff. So our goal really is just to find the best stories we can for the rest of the year, which is so cheesy. But that is it. We've got a great, over the last 3 or 4 years of running, we've built up a really great book of business, and we love our clients to death. And so the opportunity to get to work for them on a regular basis and have a full slate is the best. We have the best job.
And then there's a TV show that we've been developing for over a year that will do a proof of concept, kind of a hybrid between a pilot and a proof of concept that we've raised the funds for, and that'll shoot in September. So that'll be a big one that we hope to get out for the rest of the year, and then we'll use that to raise funds for a whole season of that. And then there's a slew of kind of short film and feature projects that we're developing and really hoping to get 2 or 3 of those done by the end of the year as well. Just kind of more akin to that category of some of the stuff we looked at with you today, like Aretha's Gold and that car spec, the Relics. It's like passion work that is not commissioned by a client, that we've just created because we needed to do something like that. There's 2 or 3 of those that we're very close to being able to get on their feet and done by the end of the year. So that's fun. That's exciting. We're due for that.
I'm looking forward to my email or phone call whenever you are doing something on a middle-aged bald man that's desperately trying to learn to use his camera. Yes.
Stay by the phone. It's coming.
Will do. All right. So I've just got last things that we probably don't have time to cover. So I'm just going to, this would have been the bonus round, but I have to at least put it up there.
That is a meal in Portland, Maine. Me and my buddies in college drove from Auburn all the way from, Southeast Alabama. We drove all the way to Portland, Maine, ate a lobster meal out of the North Atlantic, and then drove all the way back to Auburn. It took days to get up there and days to get back. That was how we spent our spring break one year. And it was delicious.
That's a great story, man. And that's more people should do that kind of stuff.
We used to do that all the time. We would just pick a destination and an experience that we wanted to have. And then we would just find a way to get there and kind of tell the story along the way and make some memories and stop wherever and all sorts of stuff.
And I'm glad you took some type of camera with you to document it, at least for the rest of us.
I was always the one that was the resident, Kevin will have a camera. He'll take photos. He'll do something. It'll be great. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, that was one image I had to squeeze in there. And then, like I said, I was going to try and see if y'all would talk gear, especially the gear on the bottom left there. That seems like necessary gear to always have with you, especially on set.
That is a friend of mine's little wiener dog named Pickles.
Does that classify as grip?
Yeah, that's good. That's electric.
That's right. Mascot.
Yeah, that sepia tone.
And this middle picture is just artistry right there, right? At its
He
finest.
took that of me.
This is what it was in high school, and it's you didn't have a video camera, but you had stills cameras, and you were that's practicing bouncing light. So there's something where I took that of you, and we timed it because you're using the flash of a camera. So you're all right, 1, 2, and then and you do that 100 times until you actually get it right.
Now you just rapid fire.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But the quality of light on your face is kind of phenomenal. It looks really good.
It actually is a really great photo. And the fact that you're holding 2 cameras is even better,
You think that we were thinking
neither of which has a lens on it, doesn't look like
Yeah, both have lens caps on them, I'm pretty sure. Now, what about this bottom right here? What is going on with this camera?
I don't really want to talk about it.
No, Greyson brought the real quality. I'm telling you, he was probably one of those early ones that was going ahead and using a instant camera lens on probably like a red or something. Is that what you were doing back then?
Vintage stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, adapting lenses already.
I don't remember the motivation for this, but I mean, I guess it looks good.
It feels like a senior portrait that somebody was like, "Oh, you like video and stuff? Here's a prop."
It's so.
I think this should be his new headshot on y'all's website.
Done.
What? I will do it. I just have to get rid. Why am I pointing to it? It's already in the photo. You're telling me something twice.
It's not obvious enough that it's in the photo. You got to make sure.
Well, and there's a trend of covering your face with a camera up here at the top too, right? I mean, y'all seems to be a popular trend.
The photo in the rearview mirror, like when you're in the passenger seat, is like,
you were kindred spirits even way back then.
It looks
there
like
you go.
Just a picture. I'm taking my own picture.
Yeah. But it looks like I edited the photo that someone took of me.
Yeah. Cringe. Big time. Big time.
Well, guys, I really do appreciate y'all doing this with me today, just sharing with me. I really do admire the work that y'all have coming out of Cedar Creative. The stories, it has not been lost on me, the fact that y'all's focus is so much about the story, both the visual of the story, the audio of the story. I mean, like I said, we sort of missed the whole sound design stuff, which I think we could probably talk hours about because I think y'all have done such an incredible job, or I'm assuming y'all and probably a few other people. I mean, it's just really incredible what y'all do with these videos. So thank y'all for sharing these videos. Thank you for creating these videos, and thank you for sharing some time with me today.
Yeah, man, this is really cool. Absolutely. Thanks for thinking of us. It's been really fun to talk.
Thanks, Brian. It's been fun.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it.